Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Tuesday, the 17th of February. So, what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about kind of what went on in the shop yesterday, and sometimes we have to be the leaders and the teachers as well. And even if you're just running a so called repair shop, right? So, stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric. If you didn't already know it, yes, this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Tuesday, Cardiac Day, the 17th of February of 2026. So, what am I saying when I say the leader and the teacher? Okay. Now, if you're running just a repair shop, which is a lot of work, you have to be the teacher sometimes. And we had a case yesterday where we had a call that the father got a hold of us and said, "Can you pick up my son's snowblower? He almost took 2 fingers off." I'm like, "What?" So that was Friday. I said, "Yeah, don't have him touch it. We'll pick it up yesterday morning, Monday morning." So we got there at 9:30 on schedule. That's what time I told him I'd be there. And there were two issues. One, the pull cord was busted, and his father didn't like you using the electric start. And I'm thinking, the electric start is there for a reason. As I explained to him, there you're a teacher, right? Is you should be using the electric start first and the pull start second, okay? The pull start is when you get so far away from the house and your thing quits or you stop. And instead of dragging all the way back to the cord, you use the pull start, right? There's a secondary way of starting things, okay? So I knocked the pull start off. I popped it off, replaced the string in it, got her wound tight, put it back on. But the other part was he was saying that he almost lost 2 fingers in it. And Claude is like, well, the only way he could almost lost 2 fingers is if he had his hand on the auger handle and sticking his hand in there. And who in the right mind would stick their hand in there? So I explained to Claude, I said, I think there's something more going on with that. When we were on the way home, because he said the handle worked fine. And I said, no, there's something not right in there. So we got it back to the shop. Did the starter rewind first, the recoil, knocked that out, flipped it up on its belly, took the bottom off, and the spring that brings back the pulley, the idler pulley, when you depress the handle, it pushes the pulley into the belt, tightens it up, all right? Well, what had happened is the spring that retracts it had busted. There's only 3/4 of a spring with no end on it. So I told Claude, I said, here's our culprit, is that when he let off that handle, he thought that he had cleared the machine, but it hadn't. It was still running because the belt hadn't, the pulley didn't get pulled back completely. But either way, you don't stick your hand inside of a machine, even when it's not turning. So that was one of the things that I decided before we got back there, because we knocked that out in about an hour. And we did a front to back check on it. It had no issues running and driving and all that stuff. All he wanted fixed was rewind and to check the impeller drive. So we get it back there. And so now I've got to be the teacher because he doesn't know a lot about snowblowers. He's a school teacher. He's very smart. But some people, when it comes to running the equipment, aren't that smart. And I explained to him, the tool on the front of the auger is there to dislodge anything that's in that mechanism. Don't ever stick your hand in there. And I even went as far as to say, even when the machine's off, because you have sharp objects in there, the auger itself and the blower, they get sharp from being warped metal against metal, and you can cut yourself really bad if you don't know what you're doing. So I told him, keep your hands out of there. And he said, well, it plugged up on him. And then So, well, the other thing you have to be careful of is you don't want to be doing a lot of slush. If you're doing slush, go slow. And the next thing was don't leave snow in it. Make sure you clear the whole system before you shut her off so that it doesn't freeze tighter than Toby's touch hole. That's one of the things that I'm not seeing this day and age because a lot of stuff is being bought online and shipped to the house or big box stores. And nobody is taking the time to show these people how to safely operate a piece of equipment. I'm even to the point of where I'm thinking about doing some YouTube safety videos. This is how you operate a snowblower safely. These are the do's and the don'ts. What do you guys think? I mean, this stuff is common sense to me, but I've been around it since I was a kid. I've always been around machines, and I always respect it. I'm never scared of anything, but I do respect it, and that's what my grandfather taught me. Everything from guns to animals is don't be scared of them. Just respect them and know your place and their place. Fair enough. But some people just aren't around that. And his dad, is one hell of a guy. And he's kind of similar, but he's been around a lot longer and he learns fast and he listens. So what else did we have going on yesterday? We had the new job with the big generator. I had started that Sunday, and I think it was 35 psi out of one side and 51 out of the other. After we got done adjusting the valves, we were up to 141 on the right and 145 on the left. So plenty of psi in the system to run it. So we buttoned up the valve covers. Next was the fire. We had fire on both sides. Fuel was nasty. You could see floaty things in it. So we drained the fuel. And I blew out the air breather. It was in pretty good shape. So we threw that back on. The one thing that it kept doing as well is every time you go to start it, once in a while it would engage, but most of the time it would just, you would hear it whiz, where it wasn't getting onto the flywheel. So I told Claude, I know it's a pain in the ass, but let's take the time to take that starter off, get it cleaned up, and see if it's salvageable. If it's not, we'll get a different starter, but I think looking at the machine, it would be better if we got it up, probably just need to go clean it. So I would say Claude spent probably 45 minutes getting that starter off, cleaning the nose, getting some lubricant in on it, testing it, and it was doing everything it should be by the time he put it back in. So we got that back in, put fresh fuel in, pulled the choke. By then, we got it to start and run. So I told myself, let's let it run for a few minutes because I'm going to do a service on it. So I let it run. We shut it off. I drained all the oil, new oil filter, new oil, fuel filter plugs, the works. So the only thing left to do with that is it needs a battery. The battery that he sent with it, it was on it, looks like it came with the unit 10, 12 years ago. So he got his money's worth out of that one. But he had said to me, he said, if you think it needs a battery, just go ahead and get us a battery and I'll take care of you. So that, I think I'm going to have Claude grab one today when I'm in cardiac rehab. I'll just send him over to Walmart with the cash and just have him pick us up a battery. Yeah, I was able to check on the cows there yesterday, so I went up with the tractor to give them some grain. I see they were a little short on hay, so I went ahead and took the time to get some hay. I've got the video. It's about probably a half hour long. I think I'll post it if you guys have any interest in watching to see what I do other than when I'm not at the shop. And what do you guys had asked about the ARC, the automatic compression, or ACR, the automatic compression release valve? Will it throw lower compressions? And the answer is yes. You got to know what you're working on. And if I'm not sure, I'll research on the manufacturer website. But you're getting a lot of units that are both pull start and electric start that come with this mechanism. And it's to have less wear and tear on the pull start, so it's easier for us to pull start. And then on the electric start models, it makes it so that you can use a lighter battery. You can use uh, there's less wear and tear on the starter, uh, overworking the starter and burning that out. There's a lot of positives to it, but there are ways around that. But if you run into a system and you put the compression tester on it and it's running 60 to 70, don't throw it out with the bathwater, literally, because it could be that release. You know, you can do a leak down test on the unit, and I've heard where you can run the flywheel backwards. That way it doesn't engage that mechanism and it gives you a truer reading. The way I approach it is if I've got 60 to 70, I don't stop. I go to fire, and then I go to fuel, and then I go to air, and then I'll see if that puppy will run. Now, if that puppy runs and it runs great at that, fine. Do I also look at the valves? Yes. It's we have kind of incorporated into our services and our repairs of adjusting the valves when we see them. It doesn't take that long. Pop the valve cover off, have a little bit of silicone put back, you know, so you're not worrying about gaskets. But most of the time, I find the gaskets stay intact and I can reuse them. Adjusting the valves should be part of your forte when it comes to services. You know, as the engine wears over time, the valves are going to get out of whack. And the more you do it, the quicker you become, the better you become. But yes, if you have a unit that has that mechanism in place, the ACR, yes, it's going to throw a lower compression rate. If you're getting in the 50s, no. Now you're down low enough so that it's it's not going to run anyways, right? And then if you've got a unit that does have that and is throwing a compression rate of, let's say, 90 to 100, good chances are it's not working anymore. The mechanism is bad. Most times, teardown isn't worth what it is to fix it. So that's a good question, and I'm glad you brought it up because, you know, we talk about compressions all the time, and that's number one in the book. And you have to approach each machine the same but different. You get the same 4-point plan, but there's going to be differences in what the compression is reading, okay? And the older units didn't have this mechanism. So if you're running low compressions, good chances are that puppy, either the valves are bad, out of whack, or she's just tired. I mean, you take that generator that Claude and I worked on yesterday, Sunday and yesterday, that's 12 or 13 years old. And they use that a lot. It's got 2,200 hours on it. And just taking the time to adjust the valves, we took it from the one side from 35 to 141 and the other side from 51 to 145. That old beast has seen a lot of hours, but is still cranking out that high compression, which is awesome. That means that somebody's been taking care of it, changing the oil regularly on it and doing services on it. All right, so I'm going to start wrapping this up, but in the comments, let me know, are you guys having to be the teachers more so today than you were even 10 years ago? You know, I know you guys that have the floor planning that are the mom and pops, family run business that sells lawnmowers and tillers and all that. I know you guys are showing your customers how to safely use them. And there's only just so much that you can try to put on the plate of the customer without overloading them, right? If you're like me, you don't read the owner's manual until something isn't working right. And I found even with like Claude with his new tractor, I don't think they adequately showed him how to use everything. You know, the good thing is he's been around equipment all of his life. The tractor that I just bought this past year, the dealership didn't show me how to run it because the people that were there didn't know how to run it. Thank goodness I know how to run it, and I did get a service book, a repair manual, and a service and a operator's manual on it. I asked them specifically for that. I said I want both, even if I got to pay for it. I want both. That way, I said we repair all our own stuff. I do not send my stuff out. So I want, if you can't get me a repair manual on that unit, I'll just go ahead and order one online. But they were good enough to supply both to me. And so far, since I've had it, we've had gelling issues where we had to take the filter off, swap the filters out. We've had the block heater on it doesn't work. So instead of spending $200 for a new block heater, I went ahead and put in a hose heater, a radiator heater for 76. We did Claude and I did the work on it. We didn't send it out. But with Claude's tractor, his has been throwing things with the dash, and I told him, I said, because he was telling me what was going on, that his whole dash would go dead. It was still light up here and there, but nothing was working. So I did a search online, and it said that it's very common with those LS models to come through with a faulty battery. If the battery gets down below 12 volts, it can damage your dash. It's all digital, okay? So I told Claude, I said, it's your battery. And he said, well, it can't be my battery because it's still starting at 20 below zero. I said, I'm telling you right now, it says your battery is your issue. He said, it's brand new. I said, no, the tractor's brand new, but you don't know how long that battery's been sitting on it. So he went home, and the next morning to start it, he noticed that it dropped down to 9.2 while he was cranking, and the dash would go out. If you let it warm up, shut it off, unhook the positive off the battery, put it back on, started it back up, the dash would work again. So he'd been going back and forth with that dealership over a battery. The son said, just give him a brand new battery. But the father wanted to make sure it went through warranty and he didn't have to pay for it. So finally, it was Friday. They called him and said that the battery had come in if he wanted to swap them out. So Claude took the battery out of his, took that down, grabbed theirs, put it back in. He said when he went to crank it the next morning, it was cranking, staying above 12 volt. Fixed, right? But are you guys being the teacher of equipment that's being sold by big box stores online to the consumer and that? Do you find yourself having to teach people how to run their equipment? YouTube is good and bad. I mean, YouTube is showing a lot of bad ways of how to run a piece of equipment. They are. And, it's the more wackier, the more crazier, the more views they get, okay? So instead of just having a good safety video on how to run a snowblower, it's pretty much non-existent. And I may do that with each piece of equipment, right from a chainsaw to a trimmer to how do you operate it. But the only problem I've got is when you go from a steel to a Cub Cadet weed trimmer, it's got a different way of starting it, okay? So many primer pumps are different. Run it on this choke, this choke, this choke. On the Cub Cadets, there's like 5 levers where you keep moving it, right? But I think I can teach the basics in about 10 minutes per unit. And that might give me something to do with videos. What do you guys think? On that note, you guys have a great Tuesday, and we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning for another episode of The Weekday.